the Kalmyk Scientific Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences, published in the Russian Federation Bulletin of the Kalmyk Institute for Humanities of the Russian Academy of Sciences. All right, origin of the Berber tribal confederation of Sanhadja. This is from Anastasia V. Stepanova. The paper presents an analysis of the sources on the medieval history of the Maghreb in an attempt to identify the origin of the Berber tribal confederation of Sanhadja. Now, on page 3 of this, actually page 4, all right, so it says Sanhadja territories. All right, so it says the Berbers are perhaps descendants of the ancient Numidians, whose country they now occupy. Their different tribes are scattered over the whole North Africa, intervening between the shores of the Atlantic and the confines of Egypt. Our accounts of this people are based on the works of Leo, Africanus, and Arab Islamic authors. Al-Idrisi, who wrote in the middle of the 12th century AD, gave a wide description of the Berber tribes and the territories they occupied. Their original country was Palestine, right? So remember, they're talking about ancient Canaan, and that was in America. And their king was Goliath. Their king was Goliath. They're related to the Goliath, yes, the one in the Bible that David fought, a giant. The Jalut, son of Daris, son of Diana, who was the ancestor of Sanata of the west, and Diana was the son of Liwa, son of Bar, son of Kay, son of Elias, son of Mudar. Mudar, remember that meant language? When Daud, the peace be upon him, slew Goliath the Berber, he slew Goliath the Berber. The Berbers migrated westward till they reached the extreme limits of the Maghreb. Then they split up there into tribes. As to Masata, Mugila, and Darisa, they settled in the mountains. As to Lawata, they settled in the land of Cyrenaica, Barca, and a group of Hawara settled in the mountains of Nafusa. The rest of them settled in the land of extreme Maghreb, and the tribes of Masmuda with them. Then they together civilized that country, and the Berber tribes are the following. Pay attention. The Sanata, the Darisa, the Mugila, Mukadar, the Banu Abd Rabi'in, the Warab Dujun, Nafsa, the Nafsawa, the Matmata, the Lamta, the Samhaja, the Hawara, Kutama, the Lawata, the Masata, Sadrata, Joslasa, the Madiuna, Sabuju. I'm probably murdering these names, but bear with me. The Madasa, the Kalima, Urba, Hatita, Walita, the Banu, the Manhus, the Banu, Samjun, the Banu Warslang, the Banu Jazdaran, the Banu Siriji, the Wardasa, the Warhun, and the other Berber tribes, from those whom we shall mention through the power of Allah in connection with cultivated parts of their land. All right, so you see, all those Berber tribes were descended from Goliath, and they were, removed from the Holy Land by David. You see, it's a whole groups of people that came out of Goliath and his kingdom. All those Berber tribes. In this book, History of the Moors of Spain, is the book, translated from the French original of Jean-Pierre Claris by M. Florian, to which is added a brief notice of Islamism. All right, this is from 1860. And we're in the very first part or chapter of this book. It's called The History of the Moors of Spain again, first epic, the conquest of the Arabs or Moors, extended from the end of 6th century to the middle of the English. That says the primitive Moors were the inhabitants of the vast portion of Africa, bounded on the east by Egypt, on the north by the Mediterranean, and on the west by the Atlantic, and on the south by the deserts of Barbary. The origin of the Moors, or Mauritanians, is like that of most other ancient nations, obscure. They don't know, or they say they don't know, right? And in the information we possess concerning their early history, confusedly mingled with fables. They came from ancient Canaan. They're talking about America, right? So let's see what they're saying here. It says, the fact, however, appears to be established that Asiatic immigrations were, from the earliest times, made into Africa. We know that, right? In addition to this, the historians of remote ages speak of certain Melek Jarfrik, king of Arabia, Felix, who conducted a people called Sabai into Libya, made himself master of that country, established his followers there, and gave it the name of Africa. It is from these Sabians or Sabaean that the principal Moorish tribes pretend to trace their descent. The abbreviation of the name Moors is also supposed in some degree to confirm the impression that they came originally from Asia. But without enlarging upon these ancient statements, let it suffice to say that nearly certain grounds exist for the belief that the original Moors were Arabians. The original Moors were Arabians. Right? In confirmation of this impression, we find that during every period of the existence of their race, the descendants of the primitive inhabitants of Mauritania have, like the Arabs, been divided into distinct tribes, and like them have pursued a wild and wandering mode of existence. The Moors of Africa are known in ancient history under the name of Nomades, Numidai, Numidians, Getule, and Masili. Nomads, travelers, nomads, nomades, Numidai or Numidians, right? Remember Goliath? He brought his people over to Africa. They became known as the Numidians. Goliath was a Berber ancestor. These were people that got kicked out by David from Canaan, America. David, Prester John. I'm talking about Prester John, so-called. They were by turns the subjects, the enemies, or the allies of the Carthaginians. All right, and with them they fell under the dominion of the Romans. After several unsuccessful revolts to which they were instigated by their fiery, restless, and inconstant temper, the Moors were at length subjugated by the Vandals, AD 427. Alright, so I just wanted to read this part from this book again, The History of the Moors of Spain. Alright, just want to show you that, they're also correlating that, these people might immigrated there and that they might be from when they're saying Asia, they're talking about the Promised Land, Canaan. All right, and again, they're Numidians. All right, Numidians, Berber genealogy, Goliath. Again, fits the same story of King David fighting Goliath and expelling them. And this is from Sheikh Way L, the Moorish American Research Group for the Moorish Science Society. And we're back in the article Moors, Moabites, and Berbers from Sheikh L Way. All right, the Moorish Science Academy, right? And he continues saying here, the question then arises as to how do these Moors equate with the Moabites? What proofs do we have that these same Moors, being spoken about in such glory and magnanimity, are the same Moors who are the people called anciently Moabites? And are these people that migrated from Arabia or Canaan in ancient times? Moors identified as Moabites in the historical record. In the medieval Christian records, the correlation between Moors and Moabites illumes itself like light entering a dark room. In the chronicles of Charlemagne, King of France, the Moors who are overtaking Europe are interchangeably called Moabites and Saracens. So, in the chronicles of Charlemagne from those times, 700 ADs, they were referencing the Moors interchangeably in calling them Moabites and Saracens. All right, it says the holy faith then flourished well and beautifully in Hispania for a long time, until ungodly Saracens and Moabites raged in warlike fashion with plunder and manslaughter against the aforesaid realm, burning towns and castles alike, tearing down churches and other holy places, slaying every man who would not deny his God. We're calling the Moors Saracens and Moabites. It's not just Drew Ali saying this. Now it says, in the above quote, reference number 15 is superscripted next to the name Moabites. The reference shows that Moabites are also the name as Moabites and Almoravides. Alright, same. Moabites are the Almoravides, Moabites. The name Moabite in place of Moor can also be found mentioned on pages 66, 68, 79, and 80. You will find reference in the glossary for proper names on page 438, where Moabites are called also Almoravites and Moabites. And on page 437 in the same glossary, the original name for Morocco is rendered Marab, obviously a play on the word Moab, Marab, Moab, with the elision filled with the letter R. It is without question that the Almoravids are the Moabites, who are the Moors that first went into Spain. In fact, in many Christian chronicles, Moab is used in place or interchangeably with Moor. It is without a question, okay? It is without a question that the Almoravids are the Moabites, who are the Moors that first went into Spain. These are the same people. In fact, many Christian chronicles, Moab is used in place of interchangeably with Moor. Moor with their king, Ali, have a special name which is Moabite. That is the same as Almoravid, O'Callaghan 2002. Several texts will be referenced from the Christian sources which unequivocally show that Moor and Moab were interchangeable terms. Moor and Moab were interchangeable terms. The immense army of the Moabites and Hagarinis went to Toledo and attacked San Servando, but its high towers were not damaged. The latter joined in many battles in the land of Moabites and Hagarenes. The battles with Count Rodrigo Gonzalez and Rodrigo Fernandez, waged with the kings of the Moabites and Hagarenes, were extremely hard fought, but these are not described in this book. I bought in 2000. All right, so you see when they're referencing Spain and all these people being Iberia being taken over, Toledo in Portugal and Spain, they were referencing Moors as Moabites and Hagarenes, or descendants of Hagar, Egyptians, Hagar. Moorish Spain was ruled by the Almoravides, who were Berbers. All right, Berbers came from Goliath, right? We just read that. Almoravides, who were the sons of Goliath, who got expelled from Canaan by David. King David expelled, all right, these Berbers, and came from the Sahara. And that the chronicle states the great army of Moabites and Hagarites, meaning Berbers and Arabs, reached Toledo and attacked the fortress of San Servando. Thereupon the Saracens moved onto Aseca. And now I'm in this book is the Encyclopedia Britannica, a dictionary of arts, sciences, literature, and general information. This is the 11th edition, volume 18, metal to mumps, all right, the words in between those. This is from 1911, and we're on page 812 of this book, Moors. We get to the word Moors, it's right here, Moors, and we're going to zoom in. And it says here, Moors, Latin Mori, Greek Malpoi, or my boy, dark men. The name which, as at present used, is loosely applied to any native of Morocco, but in its stricter sense only to the townsmen of mixed descent. In this sense, it is also used of the Mohammedan townsmen in the other Barbary states. All right, it has been by some connected with the Hebrew and Phoenician Mahur, Western. More is a Western. Wettstein derives it from Mahir, a corruption of Amasir, with its plurals Imasir and Mazir, archaic forms of the Berber native name Amasi, the free. From Mari, the classic name for the northwestern African tribes, the northwestern district of that continent, came to be called by the Romans Mauritania. The term Moors, listen to this, has no real ethnological value. Again, the term Moors, in parentheses, has no real ethnological value. The tribes known to the Romans by that name were undoubtedly of Berber stock. Again, the tribes known to the Romans by that name, anybody known as Moors, they were of Berber stock, and we already got where the Berbers came from, right? David expelled them. They first appeared in history at the time of the Yugur-time war. They just appeared. Right, 110, 107 BC, it says, when Mauritania west of the Molusha was under the government of a king called Bacchus, and appears to have constituted a regular and organized state. It retained its independence till the time of Augustus, who in 25 BC bestowed the sovereignty of the previously existing kingdom upon Juba II, king of Numidia, and the Numidians. At the same time uniting it with the western portion of Numidia, from the Molucha to the Saga, which received the name of Mauritania Castrensis, while the province that had previously constituted the kingdom, or Mauritania proper, came to be known as Mauritania Tingitana. See Mauritania. With the rest of North Africa, Mauritania was overrun by the Arabs in the 7th century. The subsequent conquest of Spain was effected chiefly by Berber tribes, but the Muslims in the peninsula, known to the Christian nations as Moors, always had a strong strain of Arab blood, the Arabs, and in most respects became Arabized. The race was also influenced considerably by intermarriage with the natives of Spain, and when the Moors were finally expelled from that country, they had become almost entirely distinct from their Berber kinsfolk, to whom they were known as Andalusians. Andalusia, right? Where Columbus left from. Andalusia. While the mountainous parts of Morocco continued to be occupied by pure Berber people, the Shilu, the Andalusian Moors, flocked to the coast towns and the plains of Morocco, right? Occupied largely by Arabs. The name Moor is, however, still applied to the population speaking Arabic who inhabit the country extending from Morocco to the Senegal and to the Niger as far east as Timbuktu, example, the Western Sahara. In this vast region and in all the towns of Barbary, many of the Andalusians settled. The Moors are ethnically a very hybrid race with the more Arab than Berber blood, a more Arab than Berber blood. A common mistake is to regard them as a black race. Alright? Pay attention. Moors, more Arab than Berber, and a common mistake is to regard these Moors as a black race as indicated by the Old English phrase black a Moor, example black as a Moor. They are a white race, though often sunburned and bronzed for generations, and both their children and those who have lived in the cities might pass anywhere as Europeans. Right? Now we got this article right here online, right? And it says the role of Goliath in Moroccan Berber genealogies. And this is from the Journal of North African Studies, Volume 4, 1999, Issue 2, Tribe and Society in Rural Morocco. The role of